Insurance. So, liability, big issue, I'm sure concerns all of you. Insurance has many different functions in this industry. And insurance is all about risk, exposure, liability, damages. That's the analysis as an insurance attorney one would do in evaluating a situation whether or not there is an insurance claim. Let me just start with the historic insurance. Historic insurance, at least from the context of California, is what is called comprehensive general liability policies, pre-1984. 1984 is a key date in California because right about that time they started, insurance carriers started writing absolute pollution exclusions. Before that time it was a qualified pollution exclusion that covers sudden accidental events. Legal terms of art that we could talk all day about. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's just say that we have been very successful in getting coverage under sudden accidental pollution exclusion policies. So these types of policies are very helpful, let me say critical, to your range if in fact you ever face a major problem, and major problem being cleanup, some kind of cleanup, remediation, cleanup abatement orders, whatever that may be, but you are asked to do something that is very costly, very entailed, and how do you afford that? Well, you know, and most of the time this is where circle litigation comes in. Circle litigation is complex, it is expensive, and it goes on for a decade. And most industry cannot afford to defend themselves in circle litigation. Certainly shooting ranges, which, you know, I say 90-95% of them are mom and pop ranges, certainly cannot. So if you are a historic range that has been there 60, 80 years, best thing that you can do is go through all of your records, go through all the records in any ex-member's house, especially go through the records in any ex-officer or director that had any real involvement at the range, go through their records, if it's even in the rafters of their garage. Because if you can develop and find old insurance, those things are worth more than their weight in gold. If you find them, make 5 copies of them, put them in different places, put the originals in the safe. Because it is the best thing that you can have if you face that unfortunate situation. It will provide you with not only perhaps indemnity monies to clean up the range, but most importantly, a defense with legal counsel to represent you, because that's where the real money's at. Those monies can dwarf what the actual cleanup may eventually cost.
We go into a little bit the kinds of documentation that you may find.
Sure.
If you don't find the policies,
yeah,
there are other documents where you can prove that a policy exists that you should be saving and preserving in a safe deposit box because they're worth millions of dollars.
Absolutely. At least out in California, we have a case, Dart Industries, that says if you don't have the original policy and you can piece together that policy by secondary evidence, well, you know what? That's probably going to afford you some coverage as well. And where does that secondary evidence come from? Because, you know, historically you're always going to hear, oh yeah, you know, John threw those things away a long time ago. I remember the day he threw them in the dumpster. They were just in the way. So it's probably going to be very rare that you find policies, but secondary evidence could be just as important. And where do you find such things? Certificates of insurance. Perhaps you had to prove up your proof of liability insurance to somebody like the NRA for an annual shoot, or another organization. Yeah, or to your landlord for your lease. Excellent point. So certificates of insurance are wonderful. You will get coverage on a certificate of insurance 100% of the time because it has all the necessary information. The insurance carrier's name, type of insurance, the insurance policy number, the policy period, and the type of coverage. You have that, you're in it. Other places you can find that kind of information, believe it or not. Old checks, old check ledgers. You know, paid State Farm, policy number such and such on this date. Comprehensive general liability policies. Found coverage that way. Old minutes. Most clubs are you know, a legal entity that has to keep minutes. A lot of people keep detailed minutes. In those minutes, we purchased the Hartford policy number such and such on this date with these policy limits. All of that is very, very valuable information. wherein if you have to piece together your old insurance coverage, you can do so in that secondary evidence. So when you go back to your ranges, talk to somebody, have them do this, and basically preserve those documents. You will do yourself a wonderful service by just doing that alone. So then let me just skip real quick to current insurance. Depending on your state, you can still get insurance that covers the most important thing, or at least let's say the most costly thing in a range, and that's covering environmental contamination. That's where it's at. That's the big ticket item that nobody can afford. In California anyway, you can't purchase that insurance any longer unless you specifically purchase it, if that makes sense. You can't purchase it in a comprehensive general liability policy. It's specifically excluded in all your other policies, meaning your D&O, whatever that may be. You're not going to find that kind of coverage. So in California, to get that kind of coverage, you have to buy that type of coverage. And to buy that type of coverage is very expensive.